The desert. We're going to talk mainly about his authority in the desert this week, and then next week we'll talk about some of the problems they had with the faith of the group in the desert. And then we're going to kind of close out the wilderness wanderings. We're not going to spend a great deal of time looking at all of the different things that happened in the desert. And then we'll kind of move on into the years of conquest, and then on into the years of the judges, kind of in rapid succession. But tonight I want us to talk about family problems within the camp. And you might not think about how closely knit some of these people were, but how many of you grew up with a big family, lots of cousins, and you knew your cousins? Okay, I have 23 first cousins, but I don't know them that well because Daddy was a minister and we moved away from where they were. So we saw them at Christmas and, occasionally. But they all knew each other really well growing up. So you have a camaraderie. It's almost like extended brothers and sisters in some families. So we're going to talk about actual brothers and sisters, and then we're going to talk about extended family cousins of Moses. And both groups were a problem for Moses because of their closeness, because they were so connected to Moses and to Aaron and to Miriam that they didn't see him as the leader that God had established, right? They saw him as Moses first, and as a leader was a secondary thing, and so they tried to stand up against him at different times. We're going to start with the ones closest to him, Aaron and Miriam. So look at Numbers chapter 12. Numbers chapter 12. And the catalyst for this is that Moses has married a woman who is from Cush, right? So he's married this Cushite woman, and Aaron and Miriam don't like her. They don't like the fact that Moses has married her. Now, Moses has been the leader of this group from day one, right? When he goes and meets Aaron in the wilderness, Moses is in charge. Aaron is his ambassador. So Moses is calling the shots. Aaron is the ambassador. Miriam's not even in the picture until we get out into the desert. But here's their response because their brother has married a woman that they don't like. It says in verse 2, "Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Hasn't he also spoken through us?" And the Lord heard this. So Aaron and Miriam are bad-mouthing Moses, I'm assuming, among the family group and among the larger group of Israel. Why is it that God is only letting Moses do this? Look at him. He married a Cushite woman. Right? So there's this undertow, this backbiting that's going on between the brother and sister of Moses and Moses. Now, Aaron is the high priest. He's a leader in Israel. Miriam seems to have been a leader among the women of Israel. So the problem is not that they were not meant to be leaders. The problem is they were not meant to be the leader. They were not Moses, they were Aaron and Miriam. Now notice verse 3. Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. How do you lead 1.5 million people in the desert if you are a humble man? It explains a little bit about why when he's on the mountain and God says, let's just wipe them out and start over with you, that Moses pleads their case. He's an humble man. He's not a proud guy. He's not looking to say, oh, well, let's make the nation of Moses. That sounds like a good idea. He's a humble guy. And one of the reasons that God was able to use him as mightily as he was, but the Lord says to Moses, verse 4, "Come out of the tent of meeting, all three of you." So the three of them went out. When the Lord came down in a pillar of cloud, he stood at the entrance to the tent and summoned Aaron and Miriam. When the two of them stepped forward, he said, "Listen to my words. When there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, reveal myself to them in visions. I speak to them in dreams. This is not true of my servant Moses. He is faithful in all of my house. With him I speak face to face, clearly, not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? The anger of the Lord burned against them, and he left. Now notice the dynamic here. God calls them forward. Aaron and Miriam come forward. God tells them what he wants them to know, and then he just leaves, right? I get this picture of God just kind of turning on his heel and walking back out the door. I've said what I need to say, goodbye. When the cloud dissipates, Miriam is leprous, white as snow. Right? So God's opinion of what Aaron and Miriam have done is pretty obvious in the fact that he gives Miriam leprosy. Now what's that going to do? There's a couple of things. We might have a lesson on leprosy at some point. It would probably be when we're studying in the Gospels and not in Leviticus or Numbers. But there are lots of rules if you have a skin disease. The person that is in charge of checking you out and finding out whether these laws and rules apply to you is the high priest. So now Aaron is looking at Miriam, and Miriam has leprosy. The first thing he has to do is isolate her for a week. She has to be isolated. At the end of the week, he's going to check her again. If she's still leprous, she has to be isolated again. If it continues, they take all of your stuff and burn it. Right? So your tent gets burned, and your stuff, your clothing gets burned, and you have to stay outside of the assembly from now on. What God does to Miriam is a 1-week sentence. She has to go outside the camp for 1 full week. So Aaron, who stood up against Moses, has to tell his sister that was his cohort in this deal, you have to leave camp for a week. So Miriam goes outside the camp, and they have to wait for 7 days. While they're waiting on her to finish her sentence, to finish her time of leprosy, they can't go anywhere. They have to wait. Okay? So Miriam apologizes to Moses and leaves camp, but everybody in camp is going to be asking the same question. Where's Miriam? Why isn't Miriam in camp? Why aren't we going anywhere? So this isn't a quiet conclusion to this family squabble. This is God putting an exclamation mark on, my guy is Moses. Right? And so Aaron, the high priest, has had to send his cohort out of the camp, and we can't go anywhere until she's back. So for a week, the camp of Israel knows exactly why they're sitting there waiting. They're waiting on Miriam. The people did not move on until she was brought back. Now, these things happen in the modern era as well. It's more likely that people who are close to leaders, whether it's physical leaders or spiritual leaders, will have less compulsion to just follow them, right? Because I've known you since we were kids. I've been around you since we were babies, and I know you better than these people know you. I'm not sure why they let you preach in their congregation, but I know you better than they know you. Those kinds of things still happen. But we're not just talking about any old preacher here. We're talking about Moses. God stands up for Moses, but then Moses turns around and stands up for Miriam to God and says, I want you to let her still be a part of this deal. I don't want you to just get rid of her. And God says, okay, but she's got to stay outside the camp for at least a week. And so she does, and then they move on. Now look over at Numbers 16. Numbers 16. This one is not the immediate family, brothers and sisters. This one is cousins. And I don't know how many separations there are between Moses and Aaron and Korah. But Korah is from the tribe of Levi. So at least if you go back through the 400 years of captivity, you're going to trace back to the son of Israel, Levi. Right? They all came from that same beginning. So they're all related in some way. These guys are Levites, therefore they are part of the priestly tribe. They have certain jobs, certain responsibilities, and certain perks. The rest of Israel is going to be making sure that they're taken care of physically so that they can take care of Israel spiritually. Korah and a guy named Dathan and a guy named Abiram get together and decide that they are equally as qualified to lead as Moses and Aaron. And this attack is a little bit more at Aaron than it is at Moses, because what they really want is the leadership of the tribe of Levi. They want to be the high priest. They want to be the leaders among the priests. To do that, they're going to have to displace Moses, because Moses is not going to displace Aaron. So it's a political move. It's a kind of an insider's push to overcome Moses and Aaron. They get together about 250 of the community leaders. Right? And not sure how many people were under the tutelage of those 250, but if we just say they each had 100, what does that make? 25,000? That's 25,000 people that are influenced by these people. So it's a pretty good bunch of folks that are being influenced by this 250 group that comes after Moses and Aaron. Let me read you just a little bit. They came as a group, this is verse 3, to oppose Moses and Aaron, and they said to them, "You have gone too far. The whole community is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why then do you set yourselves above the Lord's assembly?" In other words, who made you the boss of us? Why do you think that you're the most important thing here? Why can't some of the rest of us step up and be the leaders and you guys take a back seat for a while? We're equally as qualified as you are to do the things that you're doing. Moses takes this to the Lord, and the Lord decides that the best way to show who's really in charge and who his choice really is for everybody to bring a censer of hot coals and incense, and to all gather at the tent of meeting. Right? So remember when we didn't have a tent of meeting? Well, now this tent of meeting, it's in the middle of the camp, and everybody is coming out to that place to do things. And again, they're very closely related, whether the tent of meeting and the tabernacle are the same thing. They're very closely associated. So they come out to this prominent place in the middle of the camp, all of them with their censers in the morning. So Moses and Aaron have theirs, and these 250, Dathan and Abiram and Korah, they all have theirs. And they show up in front of the Lord and are burning incense up to the Lord. So look over at verse 15. Moses became very angry and said to the Lord, "Do not accept their offering. I have not taken so much as a donkey from them, nor have I wronged any of them." Then Moses said to Korah, "You and all your followers are to appear before the Lord tomorrow, you and they and Aaron, each man to take his censer, put incense in it, 250 censers in all, and present it before the Lord. You and Aaron are to present your censers also." Each of them took his censer, put burning coals and incense in it, stood with Moses and Aaron at the entrance to the tent of meeting. When Korah had gathered all his followers in opposition to them at the entrance to the tent of meeting, the glory of the Lord appeared to the entire assembly. The Lord said to Moses and to Aaron, "Separate yourselves from this assembly so that I could put an end to them at this time." So they all gather up, and here's what they wanted. Dathan, or I keep calling him that, Dathan and Abiram and Korah, what they want is to have this place in front of the tent of meeting. I mean, this is the prominent spot. Whenever Moses gets messages from the Lord, he goes to the tent of meeting. When Aaron and Miriam wanted to stand up to him, They went to the tent of meeting. This is the place where God shows up. The problem is they were wrong in their assumption that they were who God wanted. So now God has all of these people gathered together in one place, and he just tells Moses and Aaron, why don't y'all get out of the way? Because I'm about to do something to these folks, and I don't want it to get you. So there's going to be a very strong response from God to these folks. Skip down to 24. Say to the assembly, move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Moses got up and went to Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. He warned the assembly, move back from the tents of these wicked men. Do not touch anything belonging to them, or you will be swept away because of all of their sins. So they moved away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Dathan and Abiram had come out and were standing with their wives, their children, and their little ones at the entrances to their tents. I don't like that verse because it's so specific. You have these guys who are sinning against God, and standing with them, in other words, standing behind them, being part of this, their wives, their children, and their little ones, right? So it's not just a single generation that's at risk. It's not just their children that are at risk. There's some grandbabies in here somewhere, right? It's the parents, the children, and even the little ones that are all standing there. And Moses is saying, get away from them. The whole group of Israelites is drawing back away from them. You got the visual on this? Here's this group of people who were going to stand up to Moses and Aaron, and they've all got their censers lit up, and they're standing there waiting on God to proclaim that they're the new leaders, and everybody's backing up because God says, don't get anywhere near them. I'm about to do something. Verse 28, Moses said, this is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things, and that it was not my idea. If these men die a natural death and suffer the fate of all mankind, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord brings about something totally new, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them with everything that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the realm of the dead, then you will know that these men have treated the Lord with contempt. As soon as he finished saying all this, the ground under them split open, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households, all of those who were associated with Korah, together with all of their possessions. They went down alive into the realm of the dead with everything they owned. The earth closed over them. They perished and were gone from the community. They were gone from the community. Not, let's have a funeral. Not, let's, mourn the dead. The earth opened up, sucked them in, closed up, and they were gone. No remnant left of those who were standing up against Moses and Aaron. At their cries, all the Israelites around them fled, shouting, the earth might swallow us too. The fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering the incense. So the leadership gets swallowed up by the earth. The 250 guys who were following them get burned up with fire from heaven. Now, if you were there, how much would you want to be the next somebody to say, oh, I'll take over the leadership. I don't think Moses is who we want. Right? This is going to squelch the problem for quite some time. Moses is large and in charge. He has God behind him. And those who oppose Moses and Aaron are going to get something like this happen to them. So people just don't stand up against Moses and Aaron. But here's the aftermath. Tell Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, to remove the censers from the charred remains. Scatter the coals some distance away, because the censers are holy. The censers of the men who sinned at the cost of their lives. The censers are still holy. Hammer the censers into sheets to overlay the altar, for they were presented before the Lord and have become holy. Let them be a sign to the Israelites. So every time you go to the tabernacle with a sacrifice. That overlay on the altar, you know where that came from, right? If you stand up against Moses and against Aaron, then this is what happens to you. And here's a sign to remind everybody else what happened to these folks. And so those people should have known immediately never to mess with Moses or Aaron again. So, how many of you think that they never messed with Moses or Aaron again? Not quite yet. Let's keep going. Look at verse 36. I already did that. Go to 41. The next day, the whole Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. "You have killed the Lord's people," they said. But when the assembly gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron and turned toward the tent of meeting, suddenly the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. Moses and Aaron went to the front of the tent of the meeting, and the Lord said to Moses, "Get away from this assembly so I can put an end to them at once." They fell face down. Moses said to Aaron, "You better take your censer, put incense in it, along with burning coals from the altar. Hurry to the assembly and make atonement for them. Wrath has come from the Lord. The plague has started." That plague killed 14,700 people. Right? Why? They hadn't had enough. They were still trying to back these guys who were gone. The earth swallowed them up. There wasn't any more of them. But the Israelites wanted to stand up to Moses and Aaron some more and say, "We don't like the fact that you presided over these guys getting swallowed up by the earth." So God says, "Well, let me remind you who's in charge." And so 14,700 more people died. Why did they die? We don't say the words. Yes, we do. They were stupid. That's the answer we're getting. There's a time when you have to realize that God is God and you're not. Right? There's a problem in our society that takes God and his decisions lightly. There is a sense in which, and I've met a few people who would actually say it out loud, that they don't like the way God does things. Right? So when you say God says this, they say, "Well, I disagree, I don't like that." Well, that's what the Israelites were doing. They were just saying to God, "That's your opinion. We don't think we want to follow what you've set up." And God had to keep punishing them over and over. Now, this group of people is the same group that came up out of Egypt. Same group that said, "You should have just let us die in Egypt." Same group that said, "Where's the meat? We won't meat with our manna." Same group that just constantly, over and over and over, until God said, "Well, let's just get rid of them and start over." Moses appeals for them. Miriam stands up to them, up to Moses. Moses appeals for her. Moses loves this group of people. He is a go-between, a buffer zone between God and this group of people. Even when they're accusing him and Aaron of being the reason that these guys are dead, he says, "Aaron, quick, get your censer and start out, because there's a plague that's starting among the people, and unless you go out there and cleanse them, more people are going to die." Doesn't that make you love Moses? This guy just wanted what was best for the people. And at times he had to kind of buffer the wrath of God against these people. And God honored him because of it and loved him because of it. But God was God. God is God. And whatever he said was going to be done, period. Even if you have to swallow up some folks and just say, "They're gone." Right? He removed from among the people a group that thought they knew better than God about the leadership of Israel. So we'll leave it there, but just remember, a lot of this started as an inside job. This was Moses' immediate family and Moses and Aaron's extended family. The tribe of Levi were connected to them, were related to them, and there was just this sense that maybe one of them could do it better, but they weren't the one that God had chosen. Roll over to the New Testament. There weren't any of Jesus' family that wanted his job, but his brothers, and perhaps even his mother to a degree, worried about him and thought he wasn't quite straight in his thinking when he was in the middle of his ministry. And so they came to get him to take him home because they thought that maybe there had been a mistake. King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, God's chosen man, was doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing, but his closest family, they didn't understand it until after he went to the cross, after he was raised from the dead. Then they finally knew that he was exactly who he was claiming to be. So it happened in Moses, also happened in Jesus' life as well. We'll just leave it right there. If there's some way that we can help you by a public response, we'd love to do that.